Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And we're the
Time Travel Trio.
Matt, what'd you pick for us?
Well, today we have a double feature. The Donnie Darko and S. Darko movies. The classic Donnie Darko and the often forgotten, purposely, S. Darko.
I wouldn't even say it's forgotten. I would say it's
unknown.
No one even knew it existed in the first place. So, Donnie Darko obviously came out in 2001. Jake Gyllenhaal and
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Patrick Swayze, Drew Barrymore.
Yeah. If you've never heard of this movie, you probably don't watch movies.
Yeah.
I'm just going to kind of say. Donnie Darko, we'll just get into this one first, is about a troubled teenager who's plagued by visions of a man in a large rabbit suit who manipulates him to commit a series of crimes after he narrowly escapes a bizarre accident. So this movie was written and directed by Richard Kelly, came up with all of the concepts and this world, and we'll get into all that.
Right.
But first, let's play the trailer.
It was as though this plan had been with him all his life, pondered through the seasons. Now, in his 15th year, crystallized with the pain of puberty.
So, why'd you move here?
My mom had to get a restraining order against my stepdad. He has emotional problems.
Oh, I have those too. What kind of emotional problems does your dad have? I met a new friend.
Real or imaginary?
Wake up, Donnie.
Imaginary.
I'm going to tell you a little story today about a young man whose life was completely destroyed by these instruments of fear.
I've been seeing stuff.
Donnie is experiencing what is commonly called a daylight hallucination.
I have to obey him. He saved my life.
Have you ever seen a portal?
Has he ever told you about his friend Frank, the giant bunny rabbit?
The what?
Every living thing follows along set path. And if you could see your path or channel, then you could see into the future, right?
I'm not going to be able to continue this conversation. Don't worry. You got away with it.
What is going to happen?
I only have a few days left before they catch me. We're just gonna stop.
You should already know that.
This movie is one of those cult movies that people haven't seen in a long time, but they remember it fondly.
Right.
So,
I mean, did you guys see it in theaters? Or, I mean, I guess, I don't know if it had a good release in theaters.
It didn't have a good release in theaters because it came out right around September 11th, and one of the main plot points is
the
engine
plane crash.
a plane
Yeah.
crash,
Oh, yeah.
which was not what people really wanted to see in a movie at the time. So it kind of suffered from that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, also, apparently, I heard, like, in theaters, the original cut didn't do well at all because it was confusing as hell, so...
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is what I watched. You guys watched the director's cut of Donnie Darko. I did not. I did not see the director's cut.
But see, like, the first time I saw it, I don't think I saw the director's cut. Because I don't remember seeing, like, the title cards that had all the explanations. I just remember watching the movie.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But yeah, this time around we did see the director's cut. I saw this probably in college, I think. I think, like, a friend of mine loved it, obviously, and I saw it the first time. I think I liked it a lot the first time I saw it, because I was just watching the movie, and it's like one of those intellectual movies that you see, and you're like, oh, this movie's smart and weird and stuff. But, I mean, it is, like, I still did like some things, like, it's funny, and I like the soundtrack, obviously. Tears for Fears is in there, and Mad World is, like, I still have that on my, like, iTunes, the Mad World version.
Oh, yeah.
At the end. But yeah, now I don't know. It's kind of lost its like luster for me.
Well, yeah, so I've seen this movie growing up as a teenager. I definitely saw it before college. I saw it probably 14, 15, 16, and not that long after it came out, but I don't think I saw this in theaters. But I haven't seen it since college, I think. Probably a little less than 10 years. Or, well, we haven't graduated that long ago, but probably 6 or 7 years. And I had a lot of issues with this movie. And it was something that like I was saying, it's a movie that when I would think about it, I was like, oh yeah, that was a cool movie. I liked that movie. No longer.
Really?
I no longer like this movie. No.
I don't think I had an extreme reaction to it. I definitely think watching it again, I saw it sometime in high school. I think I was with my friend Chris when we saw this. And I saw it and I was like, I was a little confused by it, but it was kind of cool. It was different. I've always been a big Jake Gyllenhaal fan, so that was fun. I definitely think it's a little overrated. Like I'm seeing now on the IMDb page, it's ranked as number 227th greatest movie of all time on IMDb, which seems
definitely overrated.
Really high for this movie.
Yeah.
I know we're probably gonna get a lot of flack from that, but I would wonder if any of those people have seen that movie in the last 4 years, and just kind of watch it now. I understand that it definitely brought in a lot of different things. It made kooky kind of sci-fi something that could be brought into the mainstream and be cult status.
Mm-hmm.
I just did not dislike it as much watching the second time. But I definitely think it pretends to be a lot more intelligent than it is.
Yeah.
Like, I saw on YouTube shortly after, there's a 30-minute video explaining how the time travel in this movie works. Like,
it doesn't take that long.
Like, breaking down the science of it. Like, guys, like, it's you pretty much do it in a single JPEG chart.
Yeah.
It's a very straightforward story. It just uses alternate ways of telling the story to trick you into thinking. There's a movie called The Limey, directed by Steven Soderbergh. He did it when he was doing the Ocean's movie and all this other jazz. The movie, at its core, is just another revenge thriller, crime thriller. But because of the way that Steven Soderbergh had it edited, it feels different and it feels very artistic. And it's a great film. I'm not saying I don't like The Limey, but I feel like Donnie Darko did a similar thing here, where just because of the way it's done and it's shot and it's the way they directed the actors to behave, it feels so much more bigger than it is.
Well, the thing is, it's heavily crafted by the director and writer. It isn't in a way like Jen and I talked about Primer a little bit, just in the way that the director we perceived the way he feels about the movie is like he thinks it's way more important than it really is. Mm-hmm. But the difference between this and Primer is that Primer is like thought up by an engineer who like kind of used logic to think, okay, this is kind of how I'll work out. This guy just kind of created these rules. Like in the director's cut, there are pages from the book, Philosophy of Time Travel, and he explicitly wrote out these paragraphs, like to sound like scientific, jargon, but it's literally just the director writing what's happening in the movie using different words. Mm-hmm. So he lays out like the artifact, the living receiver, the manipulated dead, living, tangent universe, and it's all like the rules that he created. They don't really stem from science. It's just he just came up with it.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating because I feel that most people have not watched the director's cut like you. They watch the regular cut where you don't know any of those words.
No.
You don't know that he's the living receiver. You don't know what the artifact is. You don't know the manipulated dead. You don't know all this stuff. So I'm like, why did you even bother to come up with all of these intricate words and phrases and explanations when most people don't know it exists?
Like,
my biggest issue is that there isn't a straight man in this movie, and it needs one in order for people to be able to understand it. They break it up. It's almost like Matt and I had a pretty lengthy discussion after this movie about this because I had a lot of issues, but there's no straight man because the therapist knows more information. He tells her more than anyone else, but she doesn't have all of the facts, although sometimes she says things as if she does have all the facts, so that is a big flaw. He tells...
Like, unless she read the book when we didn't see, or whatever,
He tells...
That would be a nice twist.
Yeah, he tells Jenna Malone stuff, but not really, and so we need someone who we need a straight man in this movie, and they don't give us one because they're so desperate for us to just follow Donnie, and that's why it reminds me of Primer, is because I feel like for a little bit, the director wants us to be confused on purpose, regardless of how the story should be told. He wants the audience to be a little bit confused to make himself seem smarter. Whether that's literally true or not, that's how it feels for me, which is why it reminds me of Primer.
Right. I mean, this is the first time we've had explicit rules about the time travel, obviously besides, like, Interstellar, which is real rules. But, like, the director is like, here's what's happening, here's why things are happening, and, like, that's the characters' motivations, but it doesn't justify their actions, really, right. From, like, a satisfying story, like, standpoint. Because, like, you know, Jen and I were talking about the bullies that come at the end and, like, follow them into the, you know, Grandma Death's house and, like, pull them out and almost kill them. Like, why are they there? Why are they following them?
Supposedly they're there to rob the old lady?
Of what?
I mean, like, that's not explained at all. They're just there.
You can't even, like, jump to that conclusion. Like, that's an issue.
Like, they're there to kill Donnie, but, like, why? Donnie's the coolest kid in school.
Yeah,
he told the teacher to shove a book up her ass.
I have an issue with this, too, because he's someone who would get along with those guys, in my opinion. He's not someone who would be bullied by them. He's not enough of a stereotypical loser at this school to be someone who bullies pick on, because he does, as you were saying, because he does stand up to teachers, he does do his own thing. That's something that these quote-unquote bully, poorly written characters would relate to, because they're both that way. So I don't know if it's like, do they feel threatened by him or what, but either way,
that needs to be established.
Yeah, I don't see how they would give 3 shits about Donnie Darko.
Well, it's the same problem that, unfortunately, and it's hard for people, I think, sometimes to swallow, because people look back at high school differently, and this is coming from someone who wasn't, like, the most popular kid in school, but usually the popular kids are very nice. Like, obviously there are popular kids who are jerks.
Maybe in your
There
school.
are popular kids who are like this, but, like, there's the popular kids. There's obviously always, like, oh, like, the hot it girl and all this stuff. Like, they can be jerks. The jocks. But think about who was, like, the most popular kid in school. Who was, like, the most, like, this person rocks. That person usually was the Jake Gyllenhaal character. That person usually didn't care what other people thought. That person usually had, like, was friends with everyone, and everyone got along with that person. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying they would hang out with, like, all, like, the nerds and outcasts, but he or she would never go out of her way to, like, I'm gonna shove you into a locker or something like that, because the cool person doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the writer doesn't know how he wants people to react to Donnie Darko. Mm-hmm. He wants people to be, like, afraid of him or, like, revere him.
He wants him to be praised, but, you know, like, by the audience, but, like, to be tortured. Like, you can definitely see that the director who wrote it definitely put himself in a lot of Donnie, especially for how he's perceived.
Yeah.
Well, here's kind of where I feel like the director would step in and say, well, they are the manipulated living, and therefore they are doing what they're supposed to do to make sure that the artifact returns to the primary universe.
True.
Now, that sounds like jargon to people if they haven't seen the director's cut, but that is literally what is happening.
So, explain that to people who
I've
don't know what those
right.
words mean.
So, basically, the point at which the jet engine falls through his room for the first time is when the tangent universe is created.
So, the tangent universe is when Donnie doesn't die.
Right, because he's supposed to die, but he doesn't die,
exactly.
So it creates an alternate reality.
Yeah, so Frank leads him away. Frank, as I'll get into later on, is the manipulated dead. Basically, when the artifact appears, which is the jet engine, it's metal. Water and metal are like part of this whole fourth dimensional barrier that is in the movie. Like whenever Frank is touching Donnie through the like barrier, that's water, and like what he sees come out the chest is water and stuff like that. So Donnie is the living receiver. He has special powers. He can see the future. He has telekinesis. Pyrokinesis, apparently, super strength. That's how you put the axe in the head of the statue, like the pure copper statue. So he's given these powers, and the manipulated living are people that are in the tangent universe that are, their goal is to not die, because if the artifact doesn't return to the primary universe, the tangent universe collapses into a black hole, which could potentially destroy the primary universe and kill everything.
So that's when they say it's the end of the world. That's what that would be. So people like
it's unstable.
The manipulated living would be like his parents, his sisters, the therapist,
right.
the bullies, like the kids at school, you know, all that kind of stuff. The teacher, Drew Barrymore.
I did get the idea that they were unconsciously diverting the stream to correct time.
Exactly, and that's pretty much what's happening with the people that don't die in the Tangent Universe. The people that do die in the Tangent Universe are the manipulated dead, and they have more power than Donnie does.
So that would be Frank and
Gretchen.
Mm-hmm.
And now Frank, he's really kind of the only one that matters, because Gretchen doesn't really do anything, because if Donnie saw her, like, as she was dead, it would really mess him up.
So this is a conversation that we had as well when we were kind of going through these rules after we watched the movies, because I was saying, because he didn't, as he's going through the Tangent Universe timeline, he doesn't know Frank, but he does meet Gretchen, and he does spend time with Gretchen, quote unquote, before she dies.
Right.
So,
but she could also be subconsciously helping him get to where he needs to be by choosing to sit next to him, by choosing to be with him, by choosing to do all this stuff with him.
But what I was going to say is that before she dies, I think it's a director choice to not have her being real and dead at the same time.
Right.
Which I actually think that was a good choice, as much as it's like doesn't exactly follow with his rules, because I think we should have seen her as dead coming back, like how we see Frank.
Right.
But I would imagine that would be the reason.
Right.
For emotional punch, it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reason why we see Frank in the bunny suit in these like visions, pretty much, and with his eye bloody, is because I guess like once he is dead is when he has these powers. So like now he can travel through time, essentially through this barrier. He can talk to Donnie through the water barrier and all that stuff. That's why he has his bloody eye and stuff, and he's wearing the bunny suit.
Is because he
dies wearing the bunny suit,
which is also something when we go into S. Darko. That's also something we'll talk about there too.
Right. But yeah, so essentially the whole point of this story is that Donnie has to return the receiver, or the artifact, to the primary universe, which he does at the end by sending it through the wormhole. He creates a wormhole over his house, and then pulls the engine off the plane as it flies over and makes it go into the wormhole. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening at the end.
So those
are the rules that are set up in
this is something world. I had to kind of figure out, is that because the plane comes from the Tangent Universe and it goes into the primary universe where Donnie does die.
Right.
So the wormhole jump can be a link between the Tangent Universe and the primary universe.
Right.
Correct.
So,
but see, this is where I believe the inconsistency is. How come in the end of the movie, in the primary universe, how does Donnie know to stay there and not walk away in his sleep? Mm-hmm. Like how? I mean, I guess Frank called him away. So I guess now that it's fixed, Frank isn't there to call him away.
But why isn't Frank there?
Right. Well, I guess because the mission is complete. Like Frank succeeded in getting the receiver, or to put the artifact through the wormhole. But the question is, how come Donnie is sitting there laughing, almost like he knows he's going to die?
Well, I think because don't they keep kind of like little fragments of memory? So if he's the receiver, I guess because he has such a strong connection to that Tangent universe,
that could be
he would like remember just enough to know like I'm supposed to die right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or have the feeling of being accomplished and like that he did it well.
Right. I mean, because that one, I kind of let that one go because it's kind of more like a poetic thing.
Yes,
how mentally he feels about it.
Right. Well, when I said it, I realized that Frank woke him up and drew him away. But if Frank did it, then he wouldn't do that in the first place. So that's what would be the difference.
Because the difference was when Frank woke him up, they were in the Tangent Universe at that
point.
Correct. So.
Right. Yeah,
so
because the artifact. Right. Yeah. But yeah, so basically, the last title card that we see in the director's cut is once the living wake up. Some of them, the ones that are closer to Donnie, they have memories, or they have the feeling of like remorse or whatever they experience, which is why we see Frank touch his eye. We see Patrick Swayze character like freak out, like he's in tears.
And I wouldn't even say, I mean, yes, close to Donnie, but like close to the events in the Tangent Universe.
Correct.
Not specifically like interacting with Donnie, but like they were affected strongly by what happened. So like Patrick Swayze, his house was burned. He went to prison. His therapist had, learned all of this stuff about him.
Right. And the teacher kind of, he's unsettled. And sorry, we have a clip too, I guess, but we can play it. It's basically when Donnie gets the Philosophy of Time Travel book. There's talk about wormholes, but compared to the rules we just went through, it's not really that relevant to the rules of the movie. Yeah. But let's play it anyways.
Dr. Monotov.
Donnie.
I know this is gonna sound kind of weird, but Do you know anything about time travel?
Wormhole with an Einstein-Rosen bridge, which is theoretically a wormhole in space controlled by man. So, according to Hawking, a wormhole may be able to provide a shortcut for jumping between two distant regions of space-time.
So in order to travel back in time, you have to have a big spaceship or something that can travel faster than the speed of light.
Theoretically.
And be able to find one of these wormholes.
The basic principles of time travel are there. You've got your vessel and your portal, and your vessel can be just about anything, most likely a spacecraft.
Like a DeLorean.
Metalcraft of any kind.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like futuristic, you know?
Listen, don't tell anybody that I gave you this. The woman who wrote this used to teach here. She was a nun many years before that, but then overnight she just, she became this entirely different person. She up and left the church. She wrote this book. She started teaching science right here at Middlesex.
Philosophy of time travel. Roberta Sparrow?
That's right.
I mean, this begs the question, was Roberta Sparrow a receiver at one time? And then did she experience this whole phenomenon and then figured it out?
I would say yes,
That's what I
because
think.
someone had to be tasked with writing that book.
Right.
And having the information to be able to explain it, and somehow she was chosen, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, she obviously knew what was happening. Like, we see her talk to Donnie a couple times, and she's like, the storm's coming, you should go quickly. Like, she knows what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, I would have been interested to see her after Donnie dies and everyone, like, wakes up from their dreams.
Yeah.
But...
I know, yeah, that would have been a nice little touch.
Yeah. Like, I would have been interested to see how the director thought she would have reacted, because she kind of knew in both timelines, I would say.
Yeah, or maybe she was, like, sitting there awake, looking at something that maybe was related to her journey through this whole experience. I don't know. But, yeah, so basically, those are the rules. This whole receiver, artifact stuff, tangent universe, that's, I mean, we have it in writing. It's from the director's mouth, you know?
Yeah, you can find this online, too. Instead of, like, literally watching the director's cut, you can kind of... Because you said you found an article.
Yeah, they're all... It's the full text. It's kind of hard to read the text in the movie, because they kind of zoom in and fade out the words quickly. But it's all written... I think the director released it before the director cut. I think he wrote it up, put it online, and then released the director's cut. So the full text is there if you want to read it. Just look up like Donnie Darko, Philosophy of Time Travel. It's just the text from the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all that this movie really is. It's getting from one, in basic terms, it's getting from one flawed timeline back to the original timeline.
Right. It's correcting the glitch in the space-time continuum that happens that make the whole tangent universe happen. What my issue is, like, in order to justify this whole thing, there's a line in the text that says, divine intervention is deemed the only logical conclusion for the appearance of the artifact. That
made me so angry. So read that sentence again.
Divine intervention is deemed the only logical conclusion for why the artifact appears.
So here's the thing. The director wrote this movie. These are his rules. And he's literally saying, I don't really have an explanation, but sure, let's just say divine intervention. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, God is a theme in the movie, but like...
But I'm like, just say divine intervention is the reason, not is deemed the most logical explanation. What? Like, what is the purpose of that?
Technically, those are Roberta Sparrow's words, but from the director's mouth.
Right.
It's not...
It's just not. It's not satisfying.
Well, Deus Ex Machina is
the God machine.
Yeah,
no,
it's never satisfying, or very rarely satisfying.
Because it always feels like an excuse for not actually coming up with a valid explanation for something.
Right.
It feels like a cop out every time.
Right. It's just the only way Deus Ex Machina works in films is if the central conflict has already been solved before Deus Ex Machina happens. Good example. Spoiler alert if you haven't, if you're one of the few people who has never seen this movie, Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan has a Deus Ex Machina ending, technically. However, that's not really the point of the movie. So that's just more to give people's perspective than it is anything else, and just to wrap up the story. The central conflict of the story has already been resolved before that. But in a general sense, Deus Ex Machina never works. It's very... And also, Deus Ex Machina needs to feel like it makes sense in the world.
Like, they call it out literally. Donnie says, Deus Ex Machina before the car appears. And the guy's like, what? He's like, Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, it's also like, there is this question in the movie, does Donnie believe in God? What are his viewpoints? And then the therapist literally, like, tells him how he feels about religion to kind of, like, spell it out for the audience, which kind of annoyed me a little bit, because I think it should have been kept a little bit more vague about where he stood. But basically it's the idea that he doesn't claim that God doesn't exist, but he has never seen proof.
I mean, it's basically just
agnostic.
He's agnostic.
It's basically
so, like,
just one agnostic argument.
Yeah, it is. It's so, I don't think religion should have been as prominent as it was, because it didn't achieve anything in this story. And I will say, I did like the balance between religion and science in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Blend
yeah.
That we haven't really seen before in this way.
Yeah, and so that was cool, actually. But no, it's that as a reason for something is a bunch of bullshit.
Like, yeah, the reason why I kind of sound not enthused by this time travel is because, you know, even though I do like the idea of someone crafting a world that has rules, it just doesn't feel satisfying in this movie because... Like, Primer, I liked that it was that crafted, and I appreciated it begrudgingly. This movie, I just don't... It's just not satisfying.
No.
It's like, reading through all the rules, I'm like,
it's not
these are the rules.
It's not as complex as it thinks it is.
And then it throws all of its rules out the window by saying, oh, well, you know, God effect.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's like, it doesn't... It just doesn't... It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense in the way that it's implemented. It's not bad. I know that the movie sounds like I'm very negative viewpoint. I actually don't have a overall negative viewpoint, but I do think looking at it very closely, you start to see the flaws. It's not a movie. It sounds crazy for a movie that I think a lot of people are like, you gotta watch it multiple times. It's actually not a movie you should watch more than once.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, like,
once or twice.
The reason why I sound so bitter is because I just watched S. Darko.
Which we're about to get into.
We're going to get into that, but I don't dislike Donnie Darko. I still like certain things about it. I think it has a good sense of humor. There are some really good moments. I like the Smurf monologue. I like him telling Patrick Swayze he's Antichrist. I love... I
like Drew Barrymore. All her scenes were pretty great.
Yeah, she's a good co-teacher.
She's good.
So there are, like, I do still like things about this movie, but the more I thought about and the more I learned about the rules, it kind of soured it for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So consequences of this time travel is that Donnie does die.
Right.
It's not necessarily a rule that the living receiver has to die.
Because we have
this,
Roberta.
Yes, exactly. But in this particular circumstance, which I don't really think there's a logical enough reason to me that his death makes the difference, but okay.
Yeah, but like, especially if the reason why he did die is because Frank wasn't there to wake him up to move him out of the room.
Right, but like,
that's it.
My thing is like, why does he have to die?
Right.
I still
from like a movie director standpoint.
Yeah, I still am like.
Yeah, it's never actually made very clear.
I don't get the difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's like people do correlate things to like him being like a Christ-like figure. I mean, I don't know if that's explicitly what's happening there, but I guess it is just to drive the point of him being like, you know, if he dies, then these people don't die, you know. But again, everything that happened in the movie is in a tangent universe where everyone in there is working towards him, like getting the receiver or the artifact back into the primary universe. Yeah. So even then, it's like the whole world was wanting him to do this, like all the people essentially. So
I don't know. Anyway, so that's a consequence, but so scientific accuracy.
Well, in the clip they mentioned the Einstein-Rosen bridge, you know, all that stuff, but that's not really what's happening here. Like, Donnie has the power to create wormholes with his mind, which it doesn't make any scientific sense at all. Mm-hmm. So, like, they touch on these scientific concepts, but it's literally just the writer-director's ideas happening.
And so it is relevant to the story because, as we talked about, it is these two different...
It's a tangent
universes.
It's
and
pretty relevant.
Yeah. So, Close and Sets, it is set... This movie came out in 2001, but it is set in, what is it, 85?
88.
88.
Yeah. Virginia. 88.
Which, is that... I mean, I know that in the clip we saw there was a Back to the Future reference, but the fact that it is 88, does that kind of count as a Back to the Future reference?
I mean,
Is it just a coincidence?
As someone who grew up in, like, DC in the 90s, where, like, most of these... I didn't feel like it was very 80s looking. Am I crazy? Like, it felt like it was late 90s.
I was going to say, yeah, it felt mid-90s.
It did, yeah.
It did not feel like 80s. But, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Tears for Fears, so good enough.
Yeah, Tears for Fears. Yeah, that's it, yeah. We got them. We got the music rights for Tears for Fears.
I mean, that's had some other 80s songs, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So before we go into wanting to experience this time travel, I'm going to jump to S. Darko, but is there anything you guys wanted to note before we switch over? I did want to mention the dinner scene at the beginning, which I like... Maggie and Jake playing off of each other as siblings was really fun to watch.
Yeah, and like the whole fuck ass, suck a fuck, that I love that dialogue too.
It's good. That was pretty fun.
Seth Rogen is one of the bullies. I think it's his film debut.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
good point.
when they're at the assembly, the Patrick Swayze assembly, one of the students, the girl who's at the microphone with the bushy brown hair, is actually Ashley Tisdale from Disney Channel.
I did not
really,
recognize her.
Super young, yeah. Like her hair is way different, but her face is like, oh yeah, that is Ashley Tisdale.
And as you say it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But and I did not notice it watching it.
And the second person to speak was another guy from a Disney Channel show. He's the older brother from iCarly, with like a shaved head. So it's funny to see the two Disney people up there.
Nice. One thing I did want to note is that because Donnie changes everything, Patrick Swayze's potential pedophilia is just kind of gets away with it. He's kind of slipped under the rug again.
Actually, what happened, I think they released, along with the book text, they released some obituaries, and after the events of the movie, he's so racked with guilt that he kills himself on the golf course.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But that's like, if you didn't actually research at all, then it's like you wouldn't know.
You're right.
Right. So that's very interesting that you guys know that, and someone who did not see that, this is like...
Well, it's not...
It does seem like he gets away with it, but he does feel... I guess it's implied because
like
of
he
the end of
experienced.
You would stop interrupting me, because at the end of the movie, he felt... He was like so emotionally distraught that it's not that much of a stretch, but it isn't like spelled out.
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was the most distraught, but I was also like, I mean, is that like having like a really bad nightmare? Is he just going to be like by lunch? He's like, man, that dream was crazy.
Yeah, it's like somebody who has a child porn dungeon. Like, it's like you have guilt already. So
right?
Like, I don't get. That's kind of a stretch.
I would have liked it. I mean, I'm not Richard Kelly, I'm not the director, so that's not fair. If I was a director, or a writer, I would have had either one thing happen. Either show him committing suicide, or because supposedly having himself getting killed is supposed to like save the world and make the world a better place, have the guy either turn himself in or throw and like burn
his own house.
Or like at least burn all the material. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, there's nothing in this movie that like makes you feel like what he did was worth it. It's like, okay, so the tangent universe, I guess he saves the world, but it still never makes sense.
But not really, because that world was a tangent universe, and they're not in that anymore. So
I mean, I guess my question is, what would be the difference between him standing in his room and watching the jet engine fall into his bed?
This is what I was saying before.
Or him sitting on...
What's the purpose of him dying?
There should have been something... Someone once called this thing... I think we were talking about this last night, Jen. Someone once said that this was kind of like a darker cult version of It's a Wonderful Life. But the problem with that is they never show what him staying alive makes such a big difference in the universe.
Right. Because it isn't his choice. He has to do these things.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like being directed by the manipulated to do these things.
So let's switch over to S. Darko. It's in the same... I will use the word universe. It's in the same cinematic universe. It's the same world. This movie came out in 2009. Different director, different writer. The director is not the writer in this circumstance.
He definitely did the film, according to him in an interview.
Right. So the director, his name is Chris Fisher, so we'll get into his work in this movie. But the description, Donnie Darko's little sister, Samantha Darko, and her best friend Corey are on a country cross road trip. They find themselves entangled in a dangerous glitch in the space-time continuum. I actually don't like that description. I don't really feel like it describes this movie at all.
No.
They're not entangled in a dangerous glitch in the time-space continuum.
No.
They're not even on a country cross, which is not a real word.
Yeah.
They're not even on a country cross road trip.
They are technically.
Technically, but they're in one town the whole movie.
Yeah. They're
That's
technically.
not really road trip. That's like, hey, we stopped here on the way.
Their car breaks down, and they end up in some shaky town with B-level male actors. So, okay. I don't even want to talk about it. Let's just watch the trailer.
I like it here. With you.
Must have been quite a night. I'm sure somebody's waiting for you somewhere.
My brother died when I was 10. Ever since that day, nothing's ever been the same.
She told me she thought her brother was the lucky one.
Like he had the easy way out. You made me do it.
Okay.
When I was your age, I experienced things that made me feel like God didn't exist.
What happened to that little boy?
He just disappeared. Everything's changing for me. I can see things that I only used to dream about. There are forces at work here. Something evil. That's just the beginning.
I think we're bad people.
We need to get to the children before they spoil.
I'd do anything to take it all back. Just start over.
3 hours, 41 minutes, and 35 seconds. The world is going to end. Wake up.
So I like that trailer uses the only tiny bits of reference to Donnie Darko and puts every single one of them into the trailer.
Yeah, it really does.
That's all the if you watch that trailer and you're like, oh, is this movie actually like a lot about Donnie Darko? It's not. Watch the trailer, and those are the only references that they make. Because... Oh,
it's
God.
like, look, man, we gotta show everyone that this is a Donnie Darko film.
So,
as best we can. We know everyone's gonna get a hard-on for that bunny suit, so we gotta really put that in there.
Yeah. No one asked for this sequel, yet it was made. As I will say, maybe it pushed the avalanche off the cliff, because this is the world we have been living in for a while. We've been giving sequels that no one asked for. But okay, so it's the same actress who played his little sister. So like,
not Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Not his little sister. That's why I said little sister.
Sorry, that's right. It is. Samantha.
Samantha Sparkle Motion.
Yeah, who? Yeah, she like it. Yeah, she had little to do with any of this. And she was 10, so I'm like, I get, okay, maybe she was scarred by her brother being killed, but, just this movie.
This movie is just a bad movie.
It's just a bad movie.
It's not even like one of those movies where, like, it's so bad it's funny. Though there are some hilariously bad scenes.
There's some really horrible dialogue in this movie is just really poorly written. Just in general, the whole movie is poorly written. And I kept saying as we were watching it, first of all, it only needed to be like 45 minutes long total. It didn't need to be like 2 hours, but okay.
Right.
But I kept saying, like, this movie was written as if someone watched Donnie Darko but didn't fully understand it.
Right.
And tried to replicate it. But
It's really bad
not
fan fiction.
correct.
Right.
It's not the same. It's like trying to be the same rules, but it's not, so it doesn't make sense.
They have similar moments, but they're not tied to any of the original rules that we just described that are literally written out by the director that anyone could find. The writer could have easily read them and be like, oh, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
He just was like, oh yeah, there's something that came from the sky. It was through a wormhole. Someone was dead. There was a water thing. And they just put him in the movie.
And, like, people... The weird thing in this movie is that people can, like, manipulate time somehow. Like, multiple people.
Right.
So, like, James Lafferty can manipulate time. He's the Iraq vet. And, you know... Her friend Corey can manipulate time. She had zero to do with any of this, and then all of a sudden she was like, they like tried to make her the living receiver until she like went back and ended up killing herself or sacrificing herself instead of Samantha dying, who ended up dying anyway. So and then she didn't die. It's just this movie's a mess.
It's so bad.
So bad. Like I said, this is the screenplay is like really bad fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone really liked Donnie Darko and they decided to make their own alternate universe.
And they also watched like all of the guys in this movie were like decently popular at this time.
Right.
Like Ed Westwick from Gossip Girl is in it. James Lafferty from One Tree Hill is in it. And Jackson Rathbone from Twilight is in it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like those...
And all the guys, except for, I guess, the boyfriend of Corey, are like major perverts / creepers.
Every single guy in this movie, even, I mean, I would say even sometimes he gets a little creepy.
He's a little creepy.
Every single male, not even just the young ones, the old ones too, every single male in this movie is about to rape Samantha Darko.
Literally.
Every single scene.
Right, even like, what's his face, Officer Dewey.
He's in the trailer.
He has
like,
short shorts.
Yeah.
On, like, it doesn't
like,
make sense.
There's probably someone waiting for you, right? And I was like waiting for him to say, because if not, I will fuck you behind this bench. Because like, that's the vibe that every man in this movie is given.
And he takes her to an active crime scene because I don't know what to do with you, so I think you're in an active crime scene. What?
This movie is such a fuckfest. And no one has sex. Because like, the director puts these girls in the skimpiest clothes.
Yeah,
right.
Like, this is set in 95. It's like, not
95
2005.
Was like, yeah, 95, literally women were like wearing parachute pants. They were like...
and like mom jeans and like...
Right.
Mom
overalls.
Jeans with cropped sweaters, but like, you don't see stomach.
And fancy hats. Like, this is so...
They're not in, like, skimpy nightgowns the entire movie where, like, anyone could, like... If like, a breeze blew too far, she would lose her clothes.
Well, the thing is, why? She wakes up everything... I don't have a problem with women, obviously, wearing skimpy outfits in movies, but it has to make
There's no purpose.
It has to make
It's like these girls are slutty in a small town on purpose. Because they want to be raped, because that's how it feels.
It's just weird.
I mean, Samantha knows she sleepwalks, but she still wears, like, little short shorts and a tank top to bed. Like, girl, you know you sleepwalk, and you wake up on the ground outside.
And it's not like every time it's not like every time she wakes up, everyone's just like, oh, you know, that's the sleepwalker. Like, literally every time she wakes up, someone's like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, right? Like, or she, like, ends up under a bridge at one point. I'm like, that's where homeless people will rape you.
Like,
that's how that works.
There's so much weird
At least make
sexual stuff in this movie. By the way,
it is so weird.
Disclaimer. It is never okay to rape a woman, no matter what she is wearing.
Obviously.
Just because she is wearing short shorts and a tank top
no.
does not mean she's looking for sex. But let's just also say it's very creepy in film.
At the very least, make this location a hot desert. At least it's not an excuse, but at least that's somewhat of a reason for these girls to be dressing so skimpy and to not have shoes on ever. Which, like, bothered me. Like, she would walk on, like, tar and rocks.
She went.
With
She
shoes
goes
on.
to the mine with no shoes on, like
What?
rusted nails.
Give her socks at least.
Oh my gosh. And then, like, sometimes she's wearing, like those Keds white sneakers.
Yes.
I'm like, is she 12 or is she 18? Because
Right.
it feels like it goes back and forth a lot. I just...
like the lollipop, the little pinwheel thing.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. This movie is a fuckfest. The director just was clearly jacking off the entire time he was directing them and was not doing anything else because the directing in this movie is pretty shitty.
Yeah, like at least he gave her a bra when she's wearing the tank top.
But, like, he was clearly like, okay, go, and then, like, behind his chair was, like, jerking it, because what else was he doing? He clearly wasn't directing the movie.
Yeah.
He has, like, so many super long shots that are so unnecessary. Like, there's the one at
That's
the
why
end
the
when
shot was blurry.
There's a
he
blurry...
was jerking off.
I was going to say that, but
gosh,
there's
he
a
had
really...
the focus ring on.
Yeah, he had it somewhere else. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a really long shot of her, like, walking away. She's wearing, like, a pastel-y colored dress, and it's way too long. It's probably 20 seconds, and it's blurry the whole time of her walking away. And I just didn't understand why it was so long. There was no reason. It was just dramatic for the sake of being dramatic. So
There's
I'm like, that's
so much
stupid.
dramatic B-roll.
And, like, when she's leaving on the bus, Matt literally yelled, like, end your fucking transition already.
It was like
because
it was
there's
the
a transition
shot.
where you could see Ed Westwick on the left. So long. It was probably 2 minutes.
The movie felt so... I watched it this morning.
insane.
Never seen it before. I watched it this morning. It felt like it was 3 hours long. Because there is a great... You know, I'm going to give my review later, but there's actually a really weird way this movie actually could have been. Not great. Not even decent, but not absolutely horrible. They had an out, and they don't take it. So, spoiler alert, already, clearly. Corey and Samantha argue, and Samantha gets in this car, and she's hit by another car, and she dies.
Mm-hmm.
Corey then somehow, for reasons unexplained, let's just roll with it, has the power to manipulate time, and she goes back in time, and she sacrifices herself so Samantha can survive.
And she puts the car through the wormhole, which is the quote-unquote car that came out of nowhere that hit
Samantha earlier.
Ed Westwick's car, who
Yes.
hit her. So, like, he drives, like, a red car, and then Corey, in the other timeline, threw this gray car through the wormhole, which I'm not even going to get into that. But
the point is, there's a tangent universe inside the tangent universe.
Yeah.
Right.
But we don't know it's a tangent universe inside a tangent user. All we know is that she has Samantha was going to die, and then Corey makes it so she dies, and not Samantha, and seemingly corrects the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
The movie should have ended there. If the movie had ended there, as horrible as it would have been...
No one cared that Corey died because she's a fucking bitch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it would have redeemed Corey's character.
Yeah.
It would have also given a point to this, and it would have been a nice twist of, like, you thought Samantha, because she was, like, related to Darko, was the receiver, but it's actually Corey.
Well...
And that would have been interesting.
Well, here's our problem with all of that stuff that happened with her. Is the point of the movie is this Iraq Jack, whose name is actually Justin Sparrow, the grandson of Roberta Sparrow. That is what I thought the point of the movie would be.
First of all, sorry, pause. Since when is Jack a nickname of Justin? Because that is not a thing.
I think they call him Iraq Jack because Jack runs of Iraq.
Right, yeah, that's all.
But
why did you just call him Justin?
I don't think they knew his name. He's just some weirdo.
He's also very well kept for a homeless man.
Yeah.
He's very handsome.
He's
but
very handsome.
But so, like, the whole point... The reason why I hate the movie so much is that it violates its rules multiple times, and it just, like, it serves even less of a purpose than
there's
Donnie's journey.
Really no purpose, because in the corrected, after the, oh god, I can't even talk about it, after the tangent universe is finally corrected at the very end, and Iraq Jack dies at the windmill from the meteor.
For no reason. Which
I guess the meteor is the artifact in this movie?
Well, that's what I thought too. Like, an artifact came out of nowhere and like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Which is obviously just literally from the first movie where, like, someone's gonna die, but he gets pulled away by the manipulated dead, which is Samantha in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like he's like confused Donnie Darko with Final Destination.
Right, yeah. Right.
Yeah, well, it's just... But once he dies... And we're back in the primary universe. Like, as much as I say, like, in Donnie Darko, what's accomplished by him dying, like, literally in this movie, at least Donnie, like, affected people.
Right.
Iraq Jack didn't affect anyone.
Yep.
Right.
There's no purpose. He didn't abduct these children. He knew where they were, I guess, but, I mean, that's kind of a shitty thing, if you think about it, is that he knew that these 2 boys were down there dying and didn't do anything about it, because he was staying up above them, but okay. There's nothing about him living or dying that affects anyone else. He's a very selfish, self-involved character who only does what he wants to do. He doesn't do anything to affect anyone else.
Yeah.
He's told to burn the church because, I guess,
because Donnie did it in the first movie.
Because Donnie burned something in the first movie, and the pastor is very much the Patrick Swayze character.
Yeah,
correct.
He puts the moves on
He's the one who
Samantha.
Well, he's also the kid abductor.
Yeah. So,
so at the end of the movie, as you're kind of alluding to, like, nothing really happened. The kids are still abducted. The kid's still going to die. There's a shot, literally, the second to last shot of the movie is a kid reaching his hand through the bars of the cave.
Right.
He's just going to die.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally going to die. No one's going to know because Samantha isn't there to find him. And the meteor storm is still going to happen to destroy the world unless there's no reason why the meteor storm happened at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the movie literally ends with meteors falling from the sky from a tesseract that came through a wormhole that turned into a phoenix.
Yeah.
Literally a shot in the movie. And these meteorites fell to the ground as smoke bombs. If a meteorite makes it through the atmosphere, it's not going to be a smoke bomb on the ground. It's going to create a crater.
It was pretty hilarious because, first of all, the meteor that did fall in the beginning of the movie did create a crater, and then later at the end is literally meteors are falling, which I guess is the destruction of that tangent universe collapsing, end of the world. But, okay, they're like, all these characters, like, 3 feet behind them, meteors are crashing constantly.
Yeah, they're like,
and
oh no,
it doesn't
look
even
out.
affect them at all.
Right, they're like, just do a little juke move.
Now, my guess is that at the end, Iraq Jack creates a wormhole to send one of the meteors to the beginning of the movie, which I guess whatever it could be happening. But what made the meteors come in the first place?
Yeah.
Is that still going to happen? Is it divine intervention?
Yeah.
But what's funny is this isn't even my biggest problem with the movie, all the stuff I mentioned.
Yeah.
The biggest problem is that Samantha has the Philosophy of Time Travel book that Donnie Darko didn't get in the real universe.
Because he died, remember?
He died before anything happened in the movie. He got the book after he experienced weird things.
Yeah.
And there's a drawing, allegedly from Donnie, of the Bunny Mask.
That to me was even more, like, as much as, like, it's insane that she has the book, okay, but, like, oh my god, it's insane that she has a drawing from Donnie of Frank, who, when Donnie died, it's not like he was, first of all, it's not like he was sitting there drawing once he, like, even if he remembered memories from the Tangent Universe, which there's nothing implying that he does. He wasn't sitting there drawing Frank.
In the book, he never
unless she got it from Frank, who did have the drawings of his costume, but like, she was 10. She would not have known to talk to the teacher. She would not have known about Frank at all. Like, there's no way
Well, here's the other thing about Frank. Frank is wrongfully seen as the catch-all mascot for any time there's a Tangent Universe problem. Frank is only in a bunny suit because of how Frank died.
Because it was on Halloween, and that's the costume he was wearing. It has nothing to do with
It's not
being
like the bunny is like some demon or spirit who comes and says like the world falling apart.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally just because Frank was in a bunny suit when he died.
Yeah.
So this movie's just like, put him in a bunny suit because that's what people from the movie recognize.
Yep.
Yeah, and like the one in the S. Darko movie too, it's like a Jesus crown almost.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh god, it's the worst. This movie just is awful. Don't ever watch it.
Like, the thing is, like, in the first movie, religion is there as, like, a theme, and at least it has kind of a part. This movie, it's just there. This guy, he's the pastor with a church. It gets burned down. There's a crazy Catholic lady, Christian lady.
It's like...
Played by Elizabeth Berkley.
Yeah, it's like over your head how much... I mean, the fact that he puts on that bunny head that has the crown of yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It has that crown on it, and it hurts him when he puts it on. So I'm like, how much do you need us to think that this guy is
Supposed to be a Jesus?
Supposed to be Jesus.
Yes, the guy who left them kids in the mine.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. Do you guys have anything else to say?
Well, the thing is, the reason why it violates the rule so much is that they arbitrarily make her friend Corey a receiver, I guess. If we're going to stick to the rules of the first movie, they apply a receiver. She makes a wormhole to send metal through it, but it's not an artifact. She just makes a wormhole and sends a car through it. The artifact is the meteorite, I guess, but the manipulated people, I guess, which is Jeremy, the weird guy with the arm rash who was going to rape her at the end or whatever to watch the fireworks. How does he know anything? What does he have? Does he have powers? I guess
is he a manipulated living?
He would be. He's seeing things that are in his dreams, but why? Who cares? What does he do with anything?
Since you were talking about the very end, how does I keep wanting to call him Rodney? What's his name? Rudy? Randy. He's not a Randy. Okay. Randy goes to the motel to find Samantha and then just knows to find her on some deserted random hill in the dark?
Yeah.
With meteors falling.
What? How does he know where to look for her? That was insane to me. That was insane.
The whole movie doesn't make sense.
And he's such a ridiculous character that he rolls. Did you see this? He rolled a cigarette pack into his shirt sleeve.
Yeah, all right. It's the 90s, not the 50s.
Oh my god.
The thing is, at first I was like, okay, so this guy's going to be the receiver, this Iraq Jack, and I thought, okay, the character we're following will be the new Frank. She's the manipulated dead. Mm-hmm. But okay, if that was the way they would have done something with, but no, Iraq Jack went somewhere, and now Corey's the receiver. It's just...
It's they changed their mind. Somehow it should have been Iraq Jack instead of Corey doing anything. It should have been him doing some of this. But instead, the writer is such a terrible writer. Sorry, not sorry, but yeah, this movie sucks and you're not very good at writing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you if you're listening.
Your dialogue is literally people in a movie talking like they're in a movie.
Yeah.
You're going to take a look under the hood? I don't know. Which hood are you talking about? I don't know. If you're lucky, you might get into this hood.
It's all these so stupid, things of talking about sex, but not talking about sex. And it's so... Oh, God. It's just so...
He's a TV movie
horrible.
Writer. So, there you
go. There are good TV movies. These are not any of them. I'm not sorry to tell you that you should find another profession, because this movie is that bad. You can't... It's he changed his mind of how it logically should have been and said, nah, I'm going to have these slutty girls argue with each other because some teenage guy's going to want to jack off to that. I would. Because that's how I feel was the purpose
this movie also
of how this
that,
movie was.
I guess outside of really diehard Donnie Darko fans, who is this movie for?
That's what it goes back to the beginning. No one asked for this sequel. Even worse, actually, if you're a diehard Donnie Darko fan, you would hate this movie. Right. Even more than we hate this movie. I don't even like Donnie Darko, and I hate this movie. If I was okay, I really enjoyed the structure of Donnie Darko and how this world, and this movie shits on it and saying, oh, I liked it. It's one of those obnoxious people who's oh, I love that movie, but they don't really know anything about it if you ask them a specific question. That's how this movie is.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
And poor Elizabeth Berkley, she's in this movie somehow.
But she shouldn't be in that movie, but she was, and I'm not even that surprised because of the type of TV actors that were in this movie. It's very weird.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing too I noticed is that there might have been stuff that we didn't see that was cut out of the movie, which is surprising. But there were some government agents that were following Sam in a couple of shots.
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
Why?
It was so out of nowhere, and it was so poorly directed too. It was like a sketch comedy bit. Did you see that?
Yes.
When she's walking down the street by herself, there's no one else around in this deserted town, and she turns around and there's clearly men in
MIB
jokingly
suits.
Ridiculous FBI suits and sunglasses in a cloudy day are following her around, and she turns and sees them, and then they look off to the side as if they're wandering, and then she turns back around and doesn't even worry about it.
It's so strange.
But no one ever says. I mean,
they're in two shots at least.
Is it supposed to be a continuation from Donnie Darko when you know how it's
the FAA can't explain?
Yeah, and was there something about that in the beginning of S. Darko, the title card that's they kind of covered up? That's probably what it was. It's they covered up and they don't even claim that it ever even happened.
Right.
The engine falling.
Well, then why follow Samantha Darko, this woman who's just running around the country?
In case maybe they're always following her, in case she tells someone.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
I mean, I thought maybe because a meteorite landed there, but, like, that's just natural.
But they don't do anything.
The government wouldn't investigate that.
But they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
I mean, this movie doesn't do anything with anything.
They should have had them get on the bus at the end of the movie with her. They should have, also been on the bus.
Right.
That at least would have been something to tie something. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares?
There's nothing in this movie that just, like...
Everyone tries to rape her, and that's how this movie works.
And like even at the end, the meteorite that comes through, the guy that got it in the first Tangent universe didn't get it. The other guy did. He was still scratching himself as if he was gonna have a rash coming. Like, what are these meteorites that came from the Tesseract / Phoenix
that create a rash that's like turning these guys into like evil, creepy supervillains or something?
The movie doesn't resolve anything.
Weird. No, it doesn't have a purpose. Okay, I hate it too. Let's finish up.
Yeah.
So, would you want to experience this time travel?
No.
Either Donnie Darko or S. Darko?
Definitely not.
/ the people who actually do time travel?
No. Oh, well, okay, let's say Donnie, right? Donnie, he has powers, but it also gives him paranoia. Like, it gives him hallucinations, paranoia. It basically drives him crazy.
Yeah, he's psychotic, so I'm going to pass on that.
Yeah, definitely a no for me.
Oh, I do want to say, so in Donnie Darko, Gretchen, played by Jenna Malone, is my celebrity lookalike that I get compared to most is Jenna Malone, specifically in Donnie Darko.
Yeah, like some shots look just like you.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I kind of see it.
Like there are like I'm pretty sure I can take a screen cap of one that looks just like you.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll compare.
Okay.
Like
a little bit.
No, it's like when her hair is down and like she's like kind of looking to the side sometimes.
Definitely me when I was younger.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, right.
One last note. I do want to talk about Sharita.
Yeah.
Because I never have understood her whole thing and her purpose in the movie.
Mm. Yeah, she's there to be like a subject of bullying that isn't
but
like
then she has
life-threatening.
But then she has a crush on Donnie.
Right.
I don't get it. Is it like because she's also manipulated living, but she's removed enough from the Tangent universe that she doesn't try to correct things because she has a crush on him. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. And then her whole earmuff thing, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought her character was just there to be weird for the sake of being weird.
I know, but like she's in the Mad World.
She's like in it more than that, though.
I mean, I assumed when you guys told me there was director's cut that in the director's cut there was some scene that was left on the cutting room floor that she explains her character more, but I'm guessing not.
No,
so
she's just there. She gets yelled at. She gets bullied, kind of verbally.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I have no
Mystery.
idea.
Listeners, if anyone has a theory of what her purpose is with these rules in this universe, please let me know, because I'm honestly curious.
All right, follow me through this. Maybe she is God watching it all happen. And so she didn't want to be too close, but she likes Donnie. And
How do you get there?
I'm just fucking joking around.
Okay.
It's dumb.
There's no line.
Put it out there, Reddit.
Just
Put it out
joke.
there. Someone on Reddit's going to make a whole theory about that.
Like Donnie got too close and she was like, get away from me.
Her whole thing is just weird. Anytime someone talks to her, even if they're not being mean to her, she says shut up and runs away. Even if they're not bullying her. I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's so frustrating. I'm like, I can't even draw some sort of a conclusion about her. Like, she's just a weirdo, I guess? I don't know. Whatever. Okay. Anyway. Any other notes you guys had about either film that you wanted to bring up?
I really have to talk about that pinwheel scene in S. Darko.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so she's playing with a pinwheel on a car that's going not super fast, but I'm gonna say at least 25 miles per hour, probably more like 35.
Yeah, they're on a freeway. They're going normal freeway speed-ish.
So she drops her pinwheel. There's a shot of the pinwheel getting run over by a car that's cannot be going more than 5 miles per hour. And I'm like, is this a car trailing them? Is it supposed to be the wheel of her own car? What is this shot? What is this? It's supposed to symbolize the pinwheel being crushed because, Iraq Jack sits on a big windmill that looks like a giant pinwheel.
Oh, I didn't think
Is it supposed to be symbolism?
That gets exploded too? That's
yeah.
Too.
Is that foreshadowing?
maybe the car that slowly ran over was the suited guys following her.
True. At a very slow pace.
Yeah, at a very slow pace. They didn't want to be caught. Anyway.
I love how movies think the FBI has just, like, all these funds to, like, follow around this Samantha Darko. She's crazy.
8 years later, yeah.
No one will believe her anyway, but follow her around.
Yeah, she was 10, so yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so final reviews. We'll start with Donnie Darko.
Sure.
And do both, and then we'll do S. Darko.
Okay.
So, I want to start. Donnie Darko movie rating. I'm actually going to give this movie a 5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
That feels reasonable because big part is why did Donnie still die? Like, what was the purpose? As we were talking about, like, I don't feel like there's a good enough reason of him living versus dying of what the difference was for everyone else. So, loses a lot of points for that. And just kind of the bullshit of making up your rules and then kind of, like, divine intervention. Like, that's such an excuse.
Yeah.
So I do have dock points for that too. But Jake Gyllenhaal is great. Drew Barrymore is really great in this movie. Patrick Swayze even does a pretty decent job of being unlikable. Always points for the line, "I doubt your commitment to Sparkle Motion."
I love that line.
That's
so
a
much.
classic line.
Yeah.
And yeah. Hi.
I'm going to give it a little bit higher of a review. I'm going to give it a 5.5. It's not perfect, but I like it more than I hate it. I don't actually hate anything about this movie. I just dislike certain things or just think they could have done something better. I think if I had gone based off my first time seeing this movie, I actually might have given it a 7.
Yeah.
That's how much watching it again kind of knocked it down for me.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't know. There's just something not quite right about the movie. But I like Jake Gyllenhaal. The acting is strong. And the cinematography is pretty good. Even though it's weird and not the choice I would have made.
It is decently directed.
It is decent. Yeah. Richard Kelly does do a good job crafting this world, making the atmosphere and the mood. And it has this very weird, like, Wes Anderson went dark kind of feel to it. Which is, we saw that thing where, like, Jason Schwartzman was a choice. Jason Schwartzman would have been a very interesting actor. I think he's the only person, like, other than Jake Gyllenhaal, I can imagine playing Donnie Darko.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just very odd. But once you sit back and you actually think about the movie, it's not good. You know what I think it really honestly was? When I saw this movie, I was going through teenage angst. And so it resonated with me. But now that I'm older and I have perspective, it doesn't hit as hard.
No.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe this is a movie you're just supposed to see at a certain time to make you feel better about something or make you process something. And when you get older, you just kind of have to leave it where it is.
Do you know what that kind of reminds me of? More so of what you were saying about seeing a movie again and it kind of takes away from how much you liked it the first time is Memento. And I won't give spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen Memento because that is a pretty, like, if you give spoilers, like, you can't really see the movie. But, so I won't say anything because I don't know if you, I don't think you've seen that movie. No. But, which, actually, we should watch that tonight. But that's that kind of movie where it's like the first time you watch it, you're like, oh my god, and then you want to watch it again, but if you do watch it again, it loses so much of its, like, luster.
Right. Yeah. The suspense is gone, so that
because you already know. And so, watching this movie, you already know that Donnie, if you see it again, you know that Donnie will die in the end of the movie, and so it's kind of like, even if you don't really understand all the tangent timelines or whatever, it's like, at the end of the day, none of what we're seeing is going to happen because he dies.
It doesn't really matter.
It's different.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, you guys definitely said points that I agree with. I still do like this movie. When I first saw it, I probably would have given it an 8 because I liked it a lot when I saw it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was unique. I thought it was, like, heady because, again, I was, like, younger, like you guys are saying. And obviously, as I thought, not even seeing it again, but thinking about it more as I got older, it was already kind of fading in my mind of, like, it's kind of losing its shine. So even then, it was kind of fading. When I saw it again and thought about it a lot more, it went down even less. But yeah, it's funny. I like the soundtrack, acting's great. Jake, like, he did such a good job with this movie. Like, even just his facial expressions of, like, being this, like, psychotic teen, he just nailed it. So, but yeah, the characters were good. I thought it, was directed well and stuff. So yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
Nice.
Cool. Time travel rating. So, I feel conflicted, kind of.
It's a little rough.
6.5 out of 10. That feels where I want to land. Because I do like the structure of creating these rules and having even words that he's created to talk about different things and what they mean. And, like, logically you can follow it. But I have to take away points because it's not as complicated as he wants it to seem. And there are some flaws of, like, why and some of his explanations for things. So 6.5, that's pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. My one I had in my head was 6 because, and pretty much the same reasons you said. I guess the only little caveat I would add to it is, if you create the rules, you got to follow your own rules.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I get when people like are taking something that's an established rule and then they bend the rules, but when you've created the universe, there's no reason to change your own rules.
They're your rules.
Like, you can literally go back to page 1 of the script, add a sentence and say, okay, but there's this little, like, that bit, and it's forever canon. The audience will never know.
Yeah.
And so...
that's what being a writer is.
Right, so, I mean, I gotta give a little points off for that, but, it's not horrible time travel, and it affects the story. It does drive the story.
It definitely is unique.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jen. I do like that it's crafted. I like that... I thought the plot hole would have been like him at the end. Like, why is he sitting there dying and laughing? But, like, yeah, if Frank wasn't there to wake him up and he had these memories of him accomplishing this massive goal, he could be, like, content. So that's not really a plot hole. And without that, I think it does kind of stick to the rules that he created. But then again, the rules are created by someone that just made them because he wanted to make them. Divine intervention. Nope. So I agree with you, Jen. 6.5.
Cool. Okay, so let's do S. Darko now.
Okay.
Or wait, well, before we do that, I want to do the Donnie Darko Rotten Tomatoes rating, which is 86%, which is very high. But this is also, we've talked about this before, and I'm going to mention it every single time, that older movies that have come out prior to Rotten Tomatoes website are not accurate percentages, in my opinion.
Right.
So, like, this movie is at 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's what we were talking about, is the nostalgia of this movie, and it's very cult classic. It's not, as we said, it's not a bad movie, but the average rating was 7.6 out of 10, which feels a little high. It's a little high. 96 fresh and 16 rotten. But, like, 52% is technically fresh, right? Isn't it just above 50?
No, it has to be 60 to be fresh.
Okay, 60.
60 to be fresh.
But, I don't know. So, the critics' consensus, Richard Kelly's debut feature, Donnie Darko, is a daring original vision packed with jarring ideas and intelligence and featuring a remarkable performance from Jake Gyllenhaal as the troubled title character. And the audience score is 80%. It just feels... That feels a little high.
I would encourage people who are listening to this episode who have not seen Donnie Darko in the last 4 or 5 years to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
With this in mind, what we've talked about, and then if you still really love it, that's fine. We are allowed to be wrong. Obviously, it's just our opinion,
and we still do like it.
Yeah, we don't hate this movie, but no, I think that's a good point. If you're like listening to this and you feel like we're being super harsh or really critical of things, I recommend rewatch it, look at it critically, understand it, and then see how you feel, because that's what we do for this podcast. It's not just watching it for fun. We do analyze it. So, and sometimes
it's actually kind of a bummer, because I actually really remember this movie very fondly.
There's a lot of movies. Oof. Like, this is our 35th episode. There's a decent handful of movies that we've done that I liked before we did this and do not like anymore.
Poor Kate and Leopold.
Oh God, that's the hardest one for me to deal with.
That was a hard one for you. I remember that. Oh man.
Oh gosh, that was hard. Listen to that episode if you haven't. That movie's on Netflix, I think. Anyway, okay, let's do S. Darko movie rating.
Do you want to start, Jen?
Yeah, I do. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything I can give any points for. Mm-hmm. I will say, I think Ed Westwick did a decent job, who played Randy.
The cool
he was
guy.
at least more interesting to watch than anyone else.
Yeah.
But because everyone else was so horrible,
his dialogue was just unfortunate.
Yeah, it doesn't like counteract everyone else.
Right.
And just, I don't even really want to get into all the details again, because we'll end up talking for another half an hour about everything we hate about this movie. But the biggest thing with S. Darko is just how poorly directed and how poorly written it was. At the end of the day, it isn't logical and it's directed poorly, so I have to give it a 0.5 out of 10.
Wow, not even 1.
I'm racking my brain to try and find some positives, but like all these negatives, all the rape, all this sex, like all this stuff that's so over the top and unnecessary, and how horrible the dialogue is. It's laughable. There's no logic.
Like, it's not even so bad it's good, as we said. It's just like Project Almanac is kind of fun.
At least Project Almanac, we could kind of laugh about it. Like a Prius battery charging a time travel.
Well, Project Almanac still tries to be entertaining.
It is. This movie's not even fun enough to watch as a bad movie.
This movie wants you to suffer while you watch.
Yes.
It is. It's so long, so yeah, 0.5, at least it's better than 0.
Interesting, yeah.
As a movie, I'm going to be a little bit more merciful than you and give it 1 point out of 10, because not really any other reason other than the fact that, like, I've seen much worse. A lot of those movies have been, like, the bottom barrel Sci-Fi Channel movies. Like, this movie is... I've seen Sci-Fi Channel movies, original movies, that are way better than this movie. Way, way, way better than this movie.
Even, what's it called? What's the...
Sound of Thunder.
Sound of Thunder was much better than this movie.
Sound of Thunder had some entertaining scenes. It had some repertoire. It had some humor to break it up. And like, so it didn't take itself too seriously. You got like Ben Kingsley in that white wig.
Yeah,
so you got some stuff. I mean, the Ben Kingsley white wig gives Sound of Thunder a 0.5.
Like I recommend seeing that movie.
Please watch Sound of Thunder.
I recommend it. It's entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
It's a fun, bad movie. This movie
is not.
It's not fun. Like, if I got drunk and watched this movie, I would not have fun.
I'd be an angry drunk.
I'd be angry drunk. I guess it is cool. It's not cool. It makes me very uncomfortable every time I see, like, Samantha. I know the actress who was playing her is, like, about 18 or whatever when she was doing it.
She's like 19, I think.
Yeah, it still makes me very uncomfortable how, like, sexualized she is.
Right.
Really? Because every character was trying to rape her in every scene?
Exactly. That also does not make good. Brianna Vegan is good. Evigan, she's hot. You know, she's like the only reason I sat through Step Up. But, you know, and the Devlin Chase, she's been in a lot of stuff. Like, we're looking through her IMDb stuff.
She's done a lot.
She's the voice of Lilo.
Lilo from Lilo and Stitch, and she's done a lot of things.
So, I mean, she has a good career.
Yeah,
but this is definitely a blotch on her.
Yeah.
She played Samara in the ring?
Yeah, she was the girl in the ring.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
That's the thing. Like, I don't think DeVay Chase did a bad job in the movie. She just had shit to work with.
Yeah. I don't think she was that great.
Well, I think she was great, but I didn't like hate her. I didn't hate her as a human being.
I didn't hate her, but I thought her acting was not good.
But no one's acting's good in this movie.
No.
No one's acting. And, you know, it's like, it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily her fault. Based on all the work she's getting, I'm going to guess that it was not
writing.
her.
Yeah.
And
it's the writing and the directing. There was no motivation.
So 1 out of 10.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I didn't know we can go down to 0.5.
We can do whatever we want because this is our podcast.
Yeah.
We can break
That's how that
rules.
works.
We went back to sentence 1 and changed.
You can give it a 0.
We're the writers.
If you want to give it a 0, give it a 0.
I mean, I was going to think of a 1. You know, I was thinking of 1 right to begin with because this movie has no redeeming quality. The fact that they got her to be in the movie again, I thought was cool, I guess. It was 8 years after. She's, you know, same actress, but that's really the only redeeming quality I have with this movie. So yeah, 1. I mean, you know, back in your 0.5 with my 1, I guess. But, yeah.
Okay, time travel rating. I can't even give it a 0.5. I have to give it a 0. Well, maybe I'll give it a 0.5 because at least there is time travel. That, you know, if it's a movie that claims time travel but there isn't any actual time travel, then it would be a 0.
Right.
But at least, yes, there is time travel. There is semblance of some structure of rules, but it's out the window because it doesn't make sense. So, 0.5.
Yeah, I'm like between 0.5 and 1 with the time travel. I'm just going to stick with it and say 1, just because at one point I did think the movie was taking an interesting turn when they had Corey do all that stuff. And actually, even though it wasn't good, it was interesting at least. I was like, I did not see that coming. But then they don't do anything with the time travel. The world actually might have been a better place with
Armageddon.
With like Armageddon, at least in this world.
Yeah.
G's and knees. Like, what do they solve?
Yeah.
So but one for the time travel. It's pretty bad.
Here's the thing, plain and simple. This movie is based off of rules that were created by a person and written by someone who didn't even understand them.
Yeah.
So, like, fake rules that weren't even understood correctly. So, 0.5. They failed in all aspects.
They really did. So, this movie has 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, that's not there's no consensus because it's only had 8 reviews, 7 rotten, 1 fresh, which is the only reason it's not at 0. And so I was curious, okay, who gave it a fresh rating? They said, director Fisher does a decent job of taking the reins and delivers a dark and delicate, tragic fairy tale to the audience. Wow, this person, you're a moron. Watch some better movies and then go back and see this.
Maybe they're like in a really good mood that day. Like maybe they like got a promotion or like got engaged that day, and so everything was great.
You know why I said it? 'Cause he's probably jerking off to VHS. He's probably sitting there.
No, that was a woman.
Yeah, it was a woman.
Well, she probably.
You never know.
She's a big Ed Westwick fan.
Ed Westwick is a tall drink of water. Glass of water.
He is wearing tight shirts in the movie, so
he is. Yeah.
There's plenty for anyone to get a hard on or wide on over. So
a wide on.
Yes.
I don't think you know how it works.
That is not a thing.
It's referenced in The World's End, a much better movie. Rosamund Pike uses that word.
Okay.
And I've always been like, me and my brother have been like, that needs to be a thing.
That's hilarious.
Needs to be a
I thought
thing.
she made it up, and I was like, Matt, I don't think you know how it works.
Yeah.
No. This is from Rosamund Pike. Oscar nominee Rosamund Pike.
Right.
Man.
Can I just give you a frame of reference that the Ouija movie is at 82% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ouija Origin of Evil, which apparently is a very good movie. It was made by a completely different, went a completely different direction.
Good. Okay.
The first Ouija got 14%.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, I was just looking at Rotten Tomatoes. So, next episode, let's see, is it back to me? Whose turn?
I honestly don't remember. Well,
I did Flashpoint, so it would be your turn.
It would be my turn. Oh, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing Groundhog Day.
Woo!
Yeah, we are. We waited a long time. I worked for a producer who, not while he was working on that movie, but who did work on that movie. So I have a connection, kind of. This movie came out in 1993 and was directed by Harold Ramis, rest in peace, who also wrote it with Danny Rubin and, stars Bill Murray, Annie McDowell. Great movie. If you've never seen this,
a lot of fun.
You are missing out. This movie is excellent. Stephen Tobolowsky in his prime. This movie is great. So many other movies really take the lead from this movie and the story and this concept in so many other movies, even that we've seen or will see. Very similar to this sort of idea of reliving a day over and over again. So,
I mean, yeah, this is like Bill Murray's. This is my favorite Bill Murray role. I've seen him in some movies where I'm just like, all right, you're kind of overdoing it. But this movie, he's perfect.
Yeah, this movie's great. It won a BAFTA.
But it's
below. It's ranked below Donnie Darko. So Donnie Darko is ranked 227 top rated movies. This movie is 234. So let's all vote and move Groundhog Day up and Donnie Darko down. Yes? Okay. Am I going to get hate Twitter tweets? Probably.
Most controversial.
What else is new?
It's probably the most controversial thing we've ever said.
What else is new? Everyone hates my opinions. I don't care.
Hey,
bring it on.
We're in this together.
We're all in this together. This, you know, S. Darko could have used some Zac Efron.
Oof.
Some Zac Efron. Can you imagine Zac Efron playing Randy?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
He'd rock it. That'd be excellent.
Or at least Iraq Jack.
All right, so watch Groundhog Day before our next episode, and thank you for listening to this. On social media, we are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and Instagram, and we are the Time Travel Trio podcast on Facebook. We're also on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. And personal, I am at Jen Marlis on Twitter and Instagram.
And I'm at Robinson is Hyde.
And I'm at Foreman in Space.
So feel free to follow us. And for those who have been listening to our episodes and new listeners who said they're just getting into us, welcome and thank you. And I hope you guys aren't too mad at us after how much we ripped apart these movies, but that's our job. Or it's the job we've taken on.
Yeah, we analyzed Donnie Darko and we ripped apart S. Darko.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
We didn't rip apart Donnie Darko that bad. That was not that bad. Okay. And with that,
we are out of time.
Sometimes I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion.